In this lecture, we are going to style our links and also create some very simple animations called transitions. So here on our page, we have some links, right? Some hyperlinks that we set up with HTML right at the beginning of the course. And for now, they have these, basically this default blue color that we see all the times in links, right? However, we now want to change that. So we need to style these links, and we haven't done that yet because we actually need some special features of CSS in order to do that. So let's start by adding a class to the links. So yeah, that's right here. So the class of, let's call it simply source. Okay, and called source because this link is the source for the fact. So class and source. Okay, then let's come down here and let's try and see what happens when we simply select the link like this. So the class that we just gave it, now we select it. Let's change the text color for now to red, let's say. Well, that works just fine, right? But what if we want to, for example, change the color of the link whenever we hover it? So that's something very common, right? So in order to do that, we now need to use a so-called pseudo class. So let me show you what I mean by that. So source, and then we use the colon, and then hover. Okay, and then once we hover it, let's give it some blue color. And in fact, let's just use this one here, the one from the technology. So copy it and paste it here. Okay, let's see what happens. And indeed, now we get a different color. So the hover pseudo class here is basically still for this class, but then this pseudo class is basically a different state in which this class here can be in. So right now that is the hover class. So basically the action of hovering the link. Okay, but there are more actually. The active pseudo class, which is triggered whenever we actually click the link. So this one we later don't want to use. So I'm just going to use some other color, green. And so when I hover it, it becomes blue, but then when I click, it becomes green. Okay, now I will just move out here because I don't want to go there. Okay, and then finally there is yet another one, which is called visited. And I'm placing them here. So visited. I'm placing them in this order because this is the order that they should always be in. So first this one, and later more about this. Then visited, then hover, and then active. So let's give this here some purple color once we visited the link. And this somehow I think doesn't work because I tried it earlier. Yeah, so it doesn't really change the color, but I guess that's because we're opening the link in a new tab. Now here, actually, we should not simply style a link like this, but instead we should give it the pseudo class of link. So what this means is that only the anchor elements that actually have an href attribute will be styled. So again, this is an anchor element with the a, and it has an href attribute. But we could also create an anchor element without that. So like this. So where is that? Yeah, it's right here. And so you see that it's now not styled like this one. So, well, it also doesn't have the class. So let's put that there. But so you see that this version is not styled anyhow. Now when we hover it, then of course, this class here still gets applied. And the same with active. So now it is green because of the active pseudo class. But again, since it doesn't have an href, it is not being styled. And that's because of this link here. If I remove this, then it would look like the other one, right? So always style it with link like this. Let's remove that. And now let's give it the actual styling that we want to give it. So first of all, the color should be different. So let's again come to our tailwind colors here and to the stone colors. And what I want is basically a little bit of a darker shade than the text. So we had this almost white for the text. Now let's choose this one here for the links so that they are a little bit grayed out, basically. Like this. Okay. Then the visited should be the same. And so what we usually do is to just place these two together. And so here is yet another thing that we haven't learned yet. So we can write multiple selectors for the same declaration block. So basically this block here will now apply for this and also for this. So they simply need to be separated by a comma. So like this right here. Don't forget the comma, because otherwise we are back to the descendant selector, which we had here. So this is image inside of logo. But here with the comma, we basically have this or this. Okay, so it's basically a list of selectors. And the same here with the active. We usually group this together with the hover, as we want the same thing to happen for both of them. Okay, next up, let's remove the underline, which doesn't look really nice. So text, decoration, and then none. Okay, there it is gone. And now let's actually give it some more space here just so we can see the next thing. Yeah, just like this maybe. So what I want to do now next is to add some spacing here between the source link and the rest of the text basically. So that's very easy. That's a simple margin to the left, let's say 10 pixels. Yeah, so now it's a bit more spaced, let's say 12. Nice. Okay, so that's how you style links. And now next, let's talk about the second part of this lecture, which is about transitions. So basically animations. So I'm sure you have seen it on the web that whenever you hover a link, then that color change is not like really sudden like this. So instead you get a transition. So the color changes smoothly between this gray and the blue color. And so that's just one line of CSS. So this is what we have to do. On the normal, so the neutral state, we need to add the transition property. And so that's right here. So transition, and then here we can specify a time, let's say 1 second, just to show you very slowly. And then here we can specify some type of animation, but that's usually not necessary unless we have something complex. And so now there will be a transition between this original state here, which is in the link style, and the hover state. So watch what happens when I now hover over it. You saw? So it is moving very smoothly now between these two colors. But of course, 1 second is way too much. We can just do 0.3 seconds, for example. So that looks really nice, looks a bit more polished and a bit more professional. And that's it. Actually, that's how we do very simple transitions, and that's how we style links.